So remember, we're doing four major live streaming educational sales, personal injury attorney presentations a year, every 3 months, essentially, every 3 months, okay? And they have the continuing legal education. They include a dinner. It's typically at night. Now, we've done them in the past at night from typically a Tuesday, Thursday night from 6 to 9 o'clock. Okay. Now, remember, I've always said one of the best things you can do is to have an annual personal injury symposium. Well, we're going to do it now. We're going to take one of the four educational sales presentations a year, the summer one. We're just going to always make it the summer one. And we're going to make it a symposium, a personal injury symposium. Now, why are we going to do it and what does it involve? Why we're going to do it is for authority, recognition, and credibility and referrals. That's why we're going to do it. So let me walk through the basics of how that, in other words, we're going to make it look like you're the epicenter. You're the epicenter of personal injury, which creates an authority about you. So let me go through several of these talking points, some of these main points here. So we'll do it once a year. So it's an annual. Now, the first time you do it, you never say first annual because nobody likes a first. But every time you do something, second, third, or fourth time, you always say it, like the second annual or third annual. Okay, so this is the first annual. So just say annual, don't say first. So it's your name. So you can see what we're looking at here. It says your name, doctor name. That's your name because you want the credibility. You want the authority. Annual. We want to say annual because it makes like it's a stable authority again. Medical legal, and we want to use both terms, medical legal for attorneys and healthcare. Personal injury symposium. So it's the doctor, in my case, it'd be the Dr. Paul annual medical legal personal injury symposium. Supporting personal, now, so what's the USB or the unique segment position? This is it right here. Supporting personal injury patients and attorneys with diagnostics, therapeutics, documentation, and testimony. So obviously the diagnostics and therapeutics are the medical. The documentation and testimony are the legal. And of course, those are the four big categories of personal injury. So how this plays out is there are essentially three speakers. You're one of them, so you would pick one of the topics, maybe therapeutics or something. But we'll go into greater detail, how easy it is to lay this out. Then, of course, I'll kind of be the anchor for the whole thing. Now you're going to be the moderator. You're going to be the in-room moderator and putting it all together. But I'm going to kind of be the main featured speaker. You're definitely going to pick a topic and be a speaker. And then I'm going to bring in a chiropractic radiologist to talk about the CRMA and the ligament laxity, from the clinical standpoint, how it's done and how it's measured and all the different angles and things like that. So, and by the way, you can use this chiropractor if you want to for documentation purposes. So a lot of times your medical radiologist, not just a lot of times, they never know how to do biomechanics. So if you don't want to train your medical radiologist what to document, then I can give you the name of this chiropractic radiologist that he'll document the altered biomechanical lines of mensuration for you. So, okay. So he will be another featured speaker. Okay, and obviously he will be included in the diagnostic section and the documentation section. Okay, so we got three speakers, two featured speakers outside of you, and we'll go into how that it's divided up time and topics and all that stuff. And then what we want to do is you want to introduce your medical team. So who's your medical team? Well, you should already have had your medical team. If not, you need to be out getting that. We talk about how you do that and who the medical team is, and I'll cover that separately again later, but that's a different topic. But we want to induce our pain management, who we refer to for pain management, who do we refer to as an orthopedist, neurosurgeon, neurologist. And we're not going to have them as a speaker per se. What we're going to do is introduce them. So we're going to ask them. Now, the reason they're going to do it is we're giving them referrals. That's why they're going to do it. And we're going to ask them to come and they can introduce themselves. And if they can, just give a 5-minute presentation on how they help personal injury cases. So we're not asking them to be a presenter at all. We're just wanting them to come introduce themselves and what role do they play in the personal injury patient. And I'll give you an outline of how to interview the person. In other words, you ask them this A, B, C, and D. Otherwise, most of them won't know what to say. But that's just an introduction. And again, why do we want to do that? So they don't have to speak. We just want to introduce them as a referral source. Not only do we want to send our patients to them, but for whoever else is in the audience, we want to introduce them to them likewise. So this creates a tremendous authority back and forth. Your audience to you get deferred authority through having any of your medical team members there. And your medical team members see a lot more authority in you by putting this on and having all these other team players playing a role. So we're just introducing them. That's all we're doing. Say, hey, I refer you patients. Is there any way you can show up at 10 o'clock on this day and just introduce yourself and just 3 minutes explain your role. What's your role with the typical personal injury patient? That's it. And it's potential to even get more business. So that's how that works. Now, if you're referring them business, they'll already do that. They'll feel obligated to do it because you're already referring them business. If you're not referring them business, it's a good hook to get them involved because you're going to say, hey, I'm interested in referring you business. Will you come in and introduce yourself? Okay. Now, you make sure they're a medical team member first, meaning they don't say anything negative about chiropractic and they don't take them out from under care. If they can't meet those two qualifiers, and remember, they're not a medical team member, and you better get those two qualifiers before you invite them here, and no telling what they'll say. You never want to do that. Okay, so this gives a lot of credibility just by introducing to your medical team and to who's at the symposium. Now, the topics, like I said, are the 4 basic topics: the diagnostics, therapeutics. And obviously, these are for the low-impact soft tissue spinal injury. And we'll probably cover a little bit of disc. Matter of fact, I know we will, because we can create a much better case with a disc than just with CRMA, more so than with just an MRI. So we'll cover the basics, and I'll have the outlines for all this stuff. It'll be, to be honest with you, it's something that should be able to be done without even looking at any notes if you're a chiropractor, to be honest with you. So this is, we're covering the basics with diagnostics, therapeutics, and obviously the therapeutics, the diagnostics is the emphasis on the low impact injury with the objective and hybrid findings. That's where the focus will be with the diagnostics, as well as functional capacity indexes and impairment indexes. Therapeutics, that's going to revolve around the 3 phases of healing. What's the goal in each of the 3 phases of healing? What are the typical therapeutics? And what are the typical biomarkers? Pretty straightforward, real easy. Something you should be able to do just off the top of your mind right now. So these will all be outlines. Now, these will be about 40 to 45 minutes is what these will be, 40 to 45 minutes. So we'll give about a 15-minute in between. This is going to be 4 hours of continuing education from 9 to 1. I'll talk about that in just a second. And then we'll go into the documentation. And obviously the documentation we're going to talk about is the high sensitivity documentation and the 14 highly probable objective findings. And then we'll go into the trial testimony, and we'll put emphasis on the narrative report and trial testimony, the 12 steps of the narrative report and the 25 steps of the trial testimony. So this kind of puts the whole case together. Now, obviously, we can't go into great detail because it's only 4 hours. So we've got to cover each of these topics in a relatively quick fashion. But it's one heck of a presentation for somebody who's not medically oriented. Matter of fact, most chiropractors would attend this and get a lot out of it, just because they don't, as you know, before you joined me, you didn't know a lot of the stuff. So, but this is a good case management. This is the template for a very good annual personal injury symposium right here. Now, the date we're going to do this is on a Saturday. Not a Tuesday or Thursday. And the reason we're going to do Saturday, there's many reasons, but there's a lot more opportunity for people to attend. Saturday mornings are a lot easier for people to attend. That's kind of one of the days that's least occupied. That's kind of an easier day to get somebody to come in, as opposed to having them work all day and then they got to do something at home or have dinner with their kids or family or whatever on a weekday. So we're going to do it on a Saturday. It's going to be from 9 to 1. And I was thinking of 2 o'clock, but I think psychographically that would push it too much. When you just do something up to noon, around noon or lunchtime on a Saturday, it's kind of a throwaway. It's an easy thing to do because you're not giving up the whole Saturday. So that's why we're sticking with 1 and not pushing it to 2 or later, but still get a good 4 hours in. Now, obviously, you would pick your location based on where you do your presentations. Hopefully, you've already done 1 or 2 or 3. And it includes the basics. We will include a free continental breakfast. So if they show up, there'll be some coffee and donuts. We're going to do a free lunch, and we'll have lunch served like at 11:30. So kind of like the last hour and a half, they'll get lunch as we're doing the presentation. And then kind of when they finish lunch is when we'll do the final sales push, the offer. So we're going to do maybe like give 11:30 to 12:30 from the eat lunch and as we're talking, and have them all finished by 12:30. And so by 12:31 is really or definitely 12:45 to 1 is the finishing push with the offer and signing people up for the referrals and case evaluations and things like that. And by the way, you want to invite your patients. You want to invite your patients. You want to invite your paraprofessionals like what we talked about, your medical team. Obviously, the focus is personal injury attorneys, but you definitely want to invite your patients also. Okay? Gives you tremendous credibility. Okay, so that's who the target market would be. You would not invite other chiropractors as your competition. So you would not invite other chiropractors. This is focused for the attorney and your patient base, and then creating third-party trust through your medical team, and then selling the attorneys. That's what this is about. So that's 9 to 1. By the way, I'll be doing that here in Fort Lauderdale. I'll be doing it here in one of my offices here in Fort Lauderdale. So that's 9 to 1. That's the reason for the time. We talked about the location. You should already have a location where there can be, something catered. And then, of course, it includes the free continental breakfast. We talked about the free lunch. It's going to be 4 hours of continuing legal education. It's going to be each one of those categories: diagnostics, therapeutics, documentation, and trial testimony. And then 2 free financial driver case evaluations. But it's also going to include, I didn't put it in there, but it's going to include free registration for the live streaming, How to Stop Lowball Offers video newsletter, free live streaming. So this is what we're looking at. Now, the problem, so the time, topics, everything looks really good and simple, straightforward. And by the way, this is really simple and straightforward, especially when you see, and I'll have the outline of the presentation done by like the end of January, so you can feel pretty comfortable about everything. The outline for all of those topics: diagnostics, therapeutics, documentation, trial testimony. And then we'll go a lot into the marketing part of it. But the one part is the date. Now we're going to do it on a Saturday. Now I'm going to do it on 2 separate Saturdays. I'm going to do one for the East Coast and one for the West Coast. Now I will not do it for the East or West Coast if nobody signs up. So if I actually have somebody signing up, I'll do it. But I'm not going to do it and have everybody sit on the sideline. The other thing that I haven't thought through yet is the actual date. And here's why, is the considerations. So we're going about 3 months away. So we're doing our presentation in February. So if you go 3 to 4 months out from that, you're talking February, March, April. So you're talking May-ish, February, March, April. So you're talking May, June-ish is kind of what you're looking at. And then you go, okay, well, what are the issues? Well, obviously we don't want to do it around Memorial Weekend. We don't want to do it around Mother's Day weekend. And we don't want to do it around Father's Day weekend. So we'll take a look at this, and I'll look at the calendar a little bit, and then I've got to decide whether or not to try to get it in before school finishes. Sometimes, and if by the way, you guys that have kids or anything, if you have any feedback on that, let me know on whether or not it'd be preferable to do it in May before school finishes or in June, kind of after it somewhat finishes. If you know of any preferences with that. I don't have kids, so I can't relate to that. But we're kind of looking at possibly 2 weekends, doing it in May, either before or after Mother's Day, and one might be before and one might be after. It just might work that way. So we'll nail this down a little bit better. But that's kind of the variables we're looking at. It's Mother's Day, Father's Day. But I'm looking at May. I'm thinking as soon as summer starts, a lot of people start mentally checking out, so to speak. So we're really looking at May to get this done. But those are the considerations, is to get it away from Labor Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, or excuse me, Memorial Weekend. So it's in your name, Annual Medical Legal Personal Injury Symposium. We'll go into the marketing of it. In other words, we're going to do a really good job of saturating the market and really, making sure every personal injury attorney knows in your city that this event is going on. It's going on this weekend. So, and we'll go into all the marketing. So we'll make sure we hit plenty of marketing venues for it. So this is your opportunity to really be the authority. And bottom line is, if you want to do personal injury, you've got to be an authority. You can't be afraid to talk to attorneys. You've got to be an authority. You've got to remember, an attorney should never have an answer to a clinical question. You should always have the answer to every clinical question there is. And the attorney always has the answer to the legal questions. You don't have the answer to the legal questions. You have ideas and opinions, but that's them. So you do need to take responsibility to be the authority if you want to do personal injury. And by the way, that's what they want. They want somebody that knows what they're doing and is willing to testify. As an example, I was recently hired just off from my YouTube videos from an attorney in Chicago as an expert witness. And so far I've put the whole case together for him, narrative report. I haven't met him. He's already cut me several large checks. And now he's flying me up to Chicago. He wants me to testify. He doesn't want the chiropractor who treated the patient. He wants me. So he is flying me up to Chicago. Kind of a bill that is. Fly me up to Chicago, testimony, and fly back. And he hasn't even met me. It's through my YouTube videos and talking to me on my phone. and on the phone. And of course, I did an initial analysis with him, explaining what he probably had with his case. We worked up his case. I did his narrative report. So I put it all together for him and show him how it would all come together in court. So he's bypassing everybody and he's hiring me. This is the difference it makes when you are the authority. They bypass everybody. Any questions about the annual medical legal personal injury symposium? That'll be in May. We'll talk about it a little bit as more and more as we go on. But I wanted to put it out there because this is the single biggest event in personal injury. Once a year, you need to have an event in your name with what you want to be known for. This is it. Any questions? Hit your red button if you have a question.